Hey fam, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the Bitcoin miners, some major news catalysts coming up for tomorrow, and also some of the dividend declarations that recently just came up. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so I'm going to start with FEPI here and AIPI. I just refreshed this, but yeah, I don't see a dividend declaration here. So you guys can see it's 925. Which is today. But again, there's not an announcement as to what it's going to pay per share here. So I think we're just going to have to wait maybe a couple hours until after the market closes to wait and see what these things are going to pay out. I mean, that does often happen because, again, you guys got to remember the options market closes right around the same time as the stock market. So, yeah, it's only been 30 minutes since stocks have actually closed. So I'm not surprised to not see this here. So do keep a lookout for those. Something else I wanted to mention here is all these different basically leveraged ETFs that they have. I was not aware that these were optional, but if this is something you guys are interested in looking into, you could look into this potentially for options to get some premiums and also to potentially make some gains. If you have some charting software of your own, you could use that in combination with options to make some money. So we'll just take a look at a couple of them. So we'll do NVDX and MSTU. So NVDX, we already have this one up here. I'm going to pull up MSTU so I don't forget this. All right, so NVDX, you guys can see that unfortunately this is not as popular as something like NVDL. Because again, as NVDL, I'm sure it's been out much longer than these. These are probably really new. So a lot of options traders haven't really flocked to them just yet. But you can basically, if you wanted to, get nice, easy monthly options premiums here. Again, the premiums are actually not that bad. So $55 for a 25 delta for 1 month. Again, these are 2x leverage, so they're going to be basically twice as volatile as NVIDIA. So you would have to adjust basically your deltas and kind of take a look at the charts accordingly to where you think it may or may not go. Okay, so MSTU, I have actually not looked at this one yet. So usually when I start the wheel, I always start out with the puts instead of the calls. Yeah, this one's actually really good. This is not bad. So MicroStrategy itself does pay quite a bit in premiums, but I mean, considering how cheap this is compared to MicroStrategy, you're getting basically $140 a month for one contract for a 32 delta, or if you want to go even safer than that, you can. I'd say that's pretty good. Basically for in terms of the cost compared to the amount of premium you get. So the thing to note about this is something like NVIDIA and NVDL, they both have weekly options. So if you guys like to do weekly like we do, then this would make perfect sense. Again, NVDL has a lot more open interest as well in terms of contracts and options traders than the other ones do. Okay, maybe not so much at that level, but yeah, see, you have like 100, 200 in open interest here at these roughly about these 30 deltas, 60, 10. Kind of the point here is that you have enough open interest to get at least a couple of contracts filled. Okay, so now I'm going to go over YMAX, YMAG. So YMAX, YMAG. YMAX has paid 22 cents, YMAG 17 cents. So it's pretty good. So, roughly about, I'd say 90 cents a month for YMAX, which is actually more than the monthly amount paid, and then also roughly pretty much on par with what YMAG would pay on a monthly basis. So that's 68 cents a month or 17 cents a week. Okay, so going over here to X, you can see they announced the dividends for this week. Now, in terms of the single stock ETFs being weekly pairs, they're not really weekly pairs. Honestly, they kind of all the single stock ones still only pay once a month. They just pay at different weeks of the month. So, I suppose you could buy like a bunch of them, like have 2 in each week to kind of get those weekly payments going. Personally, I don't really care about those. I mean, we're going to get paid the same for the Group A and Group B ones, as you guys can see here, roughly about the same time frame as the old payment date. But then Group C, Group D, we got to wait. So that kind of sucks. But I suppose there will probably be more of a payment there because there's more premium to collect in between. when we would have gotten paid, and basically, the 2 weeks out. So again, I don't really care about the weekly payments thing. I think it's cool. I think a lot of people will like it, but me personally, I just don't really feel anything about it one way or the other. Okay, so QDTE. Actually, you know what? Let's start with RDTE. So this is the first payment ever for this one. Again, this is based on the Russell 2000. This is a weekly one. I mean, it's not. This one actually did pay more this time than XDTE and QDTE. Again, the Russell 2000 is basically the equivalent of the crypto of stocks, because the Russell 2000 stocks are the smallest cap, which are the most volatile. So again, based on volatility, that's how much premium you get paid. So the more volatile, the more premium; the less volatile, the less premium. So in this case, more equals more. So 36 cents per week for RDTE. And now going over here to QDTE. So this one, roughly about 25.5 cents. Again, that's over a little over, or just under $26 for this week for us. Roughly about $100 a month if you have 100 shares of QDTE. So that's pretty good. XDTE is about 26%, as you can see at the top there, just shy of 19 cents. So roughly about $19 a week per 100 shares, or just shy of $80. So that's actually pretty good. There is one other thing I wanted to go over here. So you're not going to be able to find this. Hold on a sec. So there we go. For some reason, you won't be able to find this on Curve Invest's website, I think still. I could be mistaken about this. Let me check. But the declaration was yesterday, and I did not see these here. So yeah, you guys can see this is blank. There's nothing here, but the declaration was supposed to be there yesterday. So I went kind of scouting for these and found them here on X. So TSLP, 51.5 cents, NFLP, 55 cents, AAPY, just shy of 30 cents, GOP, just shy of 38 cents. Also, same thing with AMZP, 34 cents for MSFY, and then K triple Qs, which is basically they have the same holdings as the AIPI and FEPI, or mostly the same holdings, roughly about 14 cents. We're not going to buy this one, though, because, I mean, in all honesty, AIPI and FEPI pay way more. So that's why we're in them, is because of the passive income. So in terms of the actual portfolio, so just to show you guys, we still have the same positions. Again, we only do the buy, sells, and dividends on the week, or weekend, I should say. But you guys can see we have the FEPI, WiMAX. There's NVIDIA and Misty. We'll probably get paid from those later. QDTE here, added some shares here. Basically, we pretty much got out of the TMF because we don't think the markets are going to, have major pullbacks like that. Knock on wood, it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So we took that money and put it into QDTE. And then YMAG and XDTE here, respectively. All right, so now with all that being said, let's go over the news catalyst, then we'll get into the Bitcoin miners. Okay, so today there wasn't really a whole lot of catalysts, but tomorrow there is 6, you're not going to believe this, 6 Fed members speak tomorrow. 6. Yes, you heard that right. And then on top of that, we have, it looks like GDP finals, which I don't care about that. That's probably not going to move the market too much, would be my guess. The market's going to be looking for this. They're going to be looking for initial jobless claims because, again, the unemployment rate and the amount of available jobs open and the rate at which those things increase or decrease is one of the major things that the Fed looks at. So that is very significant to the whole inflation story and unemployment and the soft landing and all that stuff. So this is going to be a big market mover. Again, I'm expecting it to be bullish tomorrow. I don't see any reason to worry. I mean, the Fed is cutting rates right now. We are expecting the labor market to actually shift and start hiring more people faster based on that news. Okay. So basically, we're expecting the labor market to shift more dovish in lockstep with the Fed, is what I'm saying. So as the Fed cuts more, the companies will hire more, pretty much is the gist of what I'm getting at here. All right, so CLSK, we're still well below the ZMAs here. I will say that basically after coming off of this fib level, I'm actually going to get rid of the 51 and I'm going to pull up the Bollinger Band so you guys can see this. Okay, so you can see it got outside the Bollinger Bands. We pulled back up. Just kind of ignore the Bollinger Bands except for the fact that they serve as support and resistance. So basically, we got oversold here. So in terms of the miners, they did move up quite a bit today, but then they kind of got pulled back down because the market, pulled back basically the last half of the day. I'm assuming that's, there's probably a little bit of hesitation going into the initial jobless claims tomorrow, would be my guess as to why that is. But regardless, September's almost over. We're going into Q4. As you guys know, Q4 is just usually extremely bullish moonshot for crypto. Okay. And bullish for equities overall, plus the Fed's cutting rates. So that's also very bullish. All right. So first target here at 1220 to 1370. And then we have 21 to roughly about 2350. I will say this. We got outside these Bollinger Bands twice. This thing's massively overextended. I don't see any reason why it can't start moving back to the upside effective immediately, especially since we're about to go into Q4, which is very bullish. Again, we already got a golden cross on these two indicators. We have hit oversold on CLSK, and this was actually the bottom back here. As far as I know, yeah, that was actually the bottom. Okay. And we're pretty much almost oversold on the RSI on this one. So I would say the risk reward here is pretty good for getting into CLSK. Again, the lows for CLSK was all the way down at 2 something or 3 something. So there is some risk there. But again, it's much less risky to get in at $9 and run the risk of it going back to $2 because you could easily just dollar cost average down to that level than it would be to say get out at, I don't know, maybe $35 or, buy, not get out. Ideally, you want to get out at $35 because it's at $9 right now, right? Not financial advice, but what I meant to say was, it would be much harder to buy a bunch up here at 35 and then DCA down. So in my opinion, this is pretty cheap for the miners, or for this one in this case. So yeah, the thing I want to point out here is that you guys can see that this thing did actually, in the previous cycle, it did start moving up. Not perfectly, but it kind of pulled back a little bit in October, but as we got closer to November, December, and into January, this thing just absolutely launched. So probably right around the time of the elections going into the inauguration of the future president, which in my opinion is going to be Trump, we'll see these things moonshot. Because again, once the elections are behind us, we already know the Fed's cutting rates. Okay, they already came out this last FOMC and was like, oh yeah, guys, we're going to do 50 basis point cut because we want to get ahead of the slowing of the economy, which they're doing. But, that's no longer a concern for the markets. They're like, okay, now how much are they going to cut by? They're not worried about, are they going to cut? They're worried about, how much are they going to cut by? And what is the data going to look like, right? Markets are forward thinking. They don't look back in time. All right, so Mara, in terms of support and resistance, I was telling you guys that basically we were getting these oversold signals on the daily, which generally speaking is a very good time to get in. Whether you guys chose to get in it or not, that's entirely up to you. So you can see here that the returns was pretty good. The first run on Mara was roughly about 90%. And then from this oversold signal, which was not quite the bottom, maybe a few cents off, but pretty close. Swing low to swing high was still about a 40% gain. So there's that. And again, we do have the EMAs on both these indicators slowly starting to point up. So that's also very bullish. It did head outside of the Bollinger Bands twice. Okay. And we also have this potential, I don't know if you guys can see it, but we have a potential also W pattern here. Okay. It's literally textbook. You got your left side of the W, the middle, and then the right side should be coming up. So in terms of levels here, so I would basically say probably about this $13 to $14 probably is going to be the base most likely. Okay. And then we have 1830 to about 20. 29.50 to 33. Again, things with the miners are a little off this cycle because we have the spot Bitcoin ETFs, which sent Bitcoin to the moon before Bitcoin usually goes to the moon. So we're probably going to see a second resurgence in these miners to newer, higher highs past these levels right here. on the respective charts once Bitcoin goes to the new all-time highs. So basically from the bottom of this level, we're looking at roughly about 50% gain and as much as 150% gain. And do keep in mind, you can also do options on these. Okay, so Riot, same thing, got pretty close to oversold. Each one of these arrows indicates on the daily time frame when this thing was oversold. Again, not every time it was perfect. This was a bullish divergence. You can see RSI higher highs and price lower lows. That's a bullish divergence, so it didn't play out immediately, but it did eventually rip. In this case, it was the bottom. In this case, it was actually the bottom at that time, but now we have another bottom. So we have a another oversold signal right here. I'm actually going to put an arrow right here. Let's see, where's the arrows at? There we go. Okay, so we have another one right there. So because of the fact that this thing was oversold twice, I think likely Riot's probably going to bounce pretty soon. I think sooner rather than later, because this thing has really just been exhausted by the bears. Okay, so it's pretty much at the bottom of the support. So I'm going to go ahead and say that anywhere from the bottom of the support to the top is kind of a good buy zone. So roughly about 760 to 1015. You can always use cash secured puts to get into these if you don't want to buy at the current share price. So 1850 to about 2125 is going to be the swing level up there. So potential maximum 175% profit here. And keep in mind, Riot could also go much, much higher. Okay, the previous cycle peak for this one was $80. The previous cycle peak for Mara was even higher than that. It looks like it was at $83. If I go over here to HUD 8, you guys can see the previous cycle top for this one is $83. Now, I'm aware that I believe that they did approve options. It hasn't been listed yet, but I believe that they did actually approve options for IBIT. So that's BlackRock's Bitcoin spot ETF. So I don't know when it's going to be listed, but at some point you probably will see an options tab here, and you can trade options on this if you own the actual spot ETF. But me personally, I'd rather just go with the miners because, again, as much Bitcoin as these guys are buying, eventually they might want to go to the miners and be like, "Hey, where's all the Bitcoin, guys? We want to buy some." And the miners are gonna be like, "Hell no, dude! I ain't selling you my Bitcoin. I'm gonna sell it to the market. You can go get it off of there if you want it." So yeah, they probably should have thought about that before trying to eat up all the Bitcoin out of existence. But anyways, what do I know, right? So in terms of support, I mean, we're kind of in the middle of the zone. So again, I mean, anywhere at the bottom of these Bollinger Bands is pretty much a good time to buy. So back here in January and then January before that, even at the bottom of the support at that $9 at that swing low would have been a good time to buy. So I would say probably somewhere between about $6.50 to $9 is probably going to be a good buy point. So this whole entire zone is roughly about 4 to 880. Resistance up here is 1715 to roughly about 23. So even from the current price, I mean, you could still be looking at it potentially at least a 2x. So 80% move there. You also have the RSI potentially about to have a golden cross. The MACD EMAs are curling up. That's very bullish. And do keep in mind the all-time high for this was 80 something. So Cypher, the all-time high for this one was $15. Again, we don't usually do fibs on this one, but I suppose maybe I could do it for this one because, again, hold on one second. So again, the all-time high for this thing was not really all that extreme compared to some of the other miners. So you could be taking a look at maybe around 24, 40, 55, and maybe even as much as $65 per share. Again, 65 would be just shy of, I think, like a 20x, somewhere in there. Okay, so we recently just hit the bottom of the Bollinger Bands. It immediately bounced. That usually does happen. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. That was also right around support. So 220 to 270, again, would be my buy area. 495 to 550 is the resistance. Then you got that swing high up there at 8. And of course, you have the all-time highs at 15. So if you are lucky enough to get a pullback and you want to buy these, the buy zone is just below. So roughly about 102%, and then 100 and 91% respectively. BTPT, so this one has gone sideways a lot. I mean, it looks like the only time to buy would have been back here in April for the entire year. So it's a pretty rare buying opportunity. Again, the support here, 160 to about $2. $4.20 to $4.90. I mean, if you really don't want to wait, you could just do options on these. I'm not sure if they have weekly options on these because it is a smaller miner, so maybe not as much volume here. Or you could just buy a little bit and kind of scale in, thinking maybe if it comes down, you could just add more to it, DCA, something like that. It's entirely up to you. So just give you guys the measured move from the current price to the swing high up here, 40%. And then we'll say from the top of the support to the swing high, roughly about 140%. And if I did not tell you this already, it's about 420 to 480 at resistance, and then 530 at the swing high up there. BITF, so this one is, in my opinion, a better buy than BTBT because, again, we have a confirmed flip zone here. So resistance turned into support. As of right now, it is still holding this macro white trend line. RSI about to get a golden cross. All looks good to me. So roughly about 240 at the buy zone. Again, it's pretty close to the bottom of the buy zone. So, I mean, you're 10 cents off. You could just add a little more if it drops a little more if you're really that worried about it. So 3 to 360 and then 393. Just round it up and call it 395. And then you have your kind of $9 and your roughly about $10 all-time high there. So even from the current price, just to get back to the all-time high, it's roughly about a 5x. And keep in mind, if Trump gets, well, I shouldn't say if, when Trump gets elected, he wants to do the whole reserve thing for the U.S. government with Bitcoin. So, and he wants to basically make sure that all the Bitcoin are mined here in the U.S. I mean, guys, if that happens, these miners could do stupid gains basically in Q1 of next year. It would not surprise me if that took place. Okay, so in terms of profit targets here, roughly about 80% and then 97% respectively, just to get back to that swing high. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.